What would you do if a smell in your building felt wrong? Not annoying, not ordinary, but like something was begging to be found? A quiet apartment, a locked basement, a neighbor who almost minded his own business. Almost. This is the story of how a single question turned suspicion into horror. How an ordinary night unraveled a carefully hidden crime, and how the truth didn't come knocking, it leaked through the floor, demanding to be seen. The smell that didn't make sense. It started the way a lot of nightmares start, small enough to ignore if you're busy, tired, or trying not to be that neighbor. A funk in the air that shouldn't be there. The kind that clings to the stairwell and follows you into your apartment like it has a key. For a couple of days, the building in Grand Rapids felt wrong in a quiet way. Not loud, not dramatic, just off. Mario Nelson lived there. Normal routine, normal life, normal boundaries. Until the smell stopped being something you complain about and started feeling like something you answer for. He did what most people would do first. Look for a reasonable explanation, a pipe, a backup, sewage. Anything that would let everyone sleep normally again. So he went down to the basement, expecting the boring kind of problem. A damp corner, a busted drain, a puddle you curse and mop and forget. Instead, he found a tarp at the end of the stairs, sitting there like it had been placed on purpose. It wasn't tucked away neatly, it wasn't labeled, it wasn't in a storage bin, it was just there. Mario stepped over it because that's what people do when they don't want trouble. You tell yourself it's not your business, you tell yourself it's probably nothing, you tell yourself you're being paranoid. But on his way back, he shone his flashlight again and saw what looked like blood seeping out from underneath. That's the moment where your stomach drops and your brain tries to negotiate. Maybe it's paint, maybe it's rust, maybe it's something spilled, but the smell didn't match. Maybe. The basement didn't feel like maybe. And Mario didn't touch it. He didn't lift it. He didn't go check. He did the only sane thing left. He backed away and called 911, trying to keep his voice steady while saying the words out loud. Within minutes, the quiet little building stopped being quiet. Because sometimes the most horrifying things aren't hidden in forests or abandoned places. Sometimes they're hidden under your feet, behind a locked basement door you walk past every day. Ashley Young, the last night seen on camera. Before the tarp, before the basement, before the building turned into a crime scene, Ashley Young was still alive. Still a real person with a real rhythm to her days. She was 31, warm, trusting, the kind of person who believed in second chances, even when life had already shown her why that could be dangerous. On the night of November 28th, 2018, she met up with an old friend, Jared Chance, Grand Rapids, a couple of drinks. A casual night that looked normal to anyone watching from a distance. Cameras caught them at Mulligan's Pub, and then at the place next door, the Peter House. In the footage, they look like two people doing what people do. Talking, laughing, moving through the night without any sign that it's about to end. And that's what makes it so unsettling. The danger didn't announce itself. There was no warning label, no siren in the background, just a normal night that turned into a dead end. At some point, Ashley followed Jared back to his apartment on Franklin Street. That's the last confirmed place she was seen alive. By morning, her phone went quiet. Messages went unanswered. Calls didn't go through the way they should. The kind of silence that doesn't feel like busy or sleeping in. The kind that makes your chest tighten because you know your person. And this isn't them. Ashley's mom, Christine Young, felt it immediately. Mothers have that radar that doesn't care about logic. She reached out. Again and again. Nothing. Then she started digging, asking friends, tracing the last known steps, trying to piece together where her daughter could have gone. And then the name came up. Jared. The same Jared connected to an older incident in Ashley's life, the kind of detail that snaps into place after the fact and makes you feel sick. Because now it has a face. Christine didn't even know Ashley had been with him that night. That realization alone hit like a betrayal, because it meant the truth had been sitting nearby while everyone else was miles away searching in the dark. Christine left him a voicemail that wasn't gentle. It wasn't meant to be. When your child disappears, politeness becomes a luxury you can't afford. Her message carried a warning that wasn't a threat so much as a promise. This doesn't go away until I get my daughter back. Days passed. In Jared's apartment, the lights stayed on. Life looked normal from the outside, and Ashley was still gone. Lies, Facebook, and a father who knew the system. When Jared finally spoke to Christine, he didn't bring clarity. He brought a story, one that sounded like it was built to stall, not to explain. He claimed Ashley lost her phone. He said she left it somewhere. He implied she was on her way home. The kind of explanation that's just specific enough to sound believable, but empty enough to go nowhere. Christine didn't buy it. Not because she wanted to suspect him, but because every word felt like a door closing. So she did what a lot of parents do when the official response feels too slow. She went public. Social media became the megaphone. Posts, shares, questions. A digital search party fueled by fear and anger, and the desperate hope that someone knows something. It worked in one way. People started paying attention. But it also put pressure on Jared and on Jared's family. Jared's father, James Chance, was a former police officer. He understood the system from the inside. And when he saw the storm growing online, he didn't respond with empathy or urgency. He responded like a man trying to control damage. He brought Jared to the police department not to say, "Help us find her," but to complain that people were harassing his son on Facebook. It wasn't, "My son is worried about Ashley." It was, "My son is being targeted." And he walked in, already framing the rules. You'll want to talk to him, but he needs an attorney. That line matters, because it reveals the mindset. If you're truly trying to find a missing friend, you don't start with legal shields. You start with information. You start with urgency. You start with the question that actually matters. Where is she? Instead, the conversation became procedural, defensive, controlled. It felt like someone was preparing for the possibility that the truth would be bad. Then, while Christine and Ashley's friends were pushing online and trying to keep her name alive, the building on Franklin Street was quietly carrying its own secret sealed behind a basement door and covered in plastic. And as the days passed, the smell got worse. The basement tarp, when "not my business" breaks. Mario's 911 call didn't sound like someone chasing drama. It sounded like someone trying to stay calm while his instincts screamed. He talked about the smell. He talked about the basement door usually being locked.
Our apartment just had this real bad smell. So I go in the basement to check the pipes, see if the sewage that flooded or something.
He talked about the tarp and what looked like blood leaking from it. And he said the one thing you only say when you truly think something is wrong. "I want the police to come. Right now." Officers arrived and went down those narrow steps with flashlights cutting through the dark. Concrete. Storage clutter. That same air-thick, heavy, unforgettable. Then a beam landed on the tarp, and the scene turned from suspicious to horrifying in a single second. They saw human skin. At that moment, the basement stopped being just a basement. It became a dumping ground, a hiding place, a final insult. And the building became a crime scene in real-time tape, radios, detectives arriving fast, neighbors pulled aside, questions firing off. in sharp, practical bursts. Because once you see something like that, there's no going back to maybe. And then came the next terrifying thought. Who lives above this? The answer was immediate. Apartment 2B? Jared Chance. Neighbors had already been noticing things they didn't want to notice. Late night noises, heavy movement. Big trash bags were carried down the stairs. A vibe of secrecy that didn't match normal life. Some neighbors remembered seeing a woman Ashley around the building. A white sweater, dark leggings, boots. Pleasant. Not in distress. She looked like someone who thought she was safe because she was with a person she knew. Mario also remembered something that sounded small at the time but now felt huge. Jared asked for help with a car, Ashley's car, because the keys were locked in the ignition. That's not proof by itself, but it's the kind of detail that starts to glow once you understand what might have happened. Then there was another detail. Jared had sent a message basically saying, if someone comes looking for me, don't tell them I'm here. People say things like that when they're avoiding consequences, when they're running, when they already know what's coming. Upstairs, the police knocked. Jared answered like a man stepping out of a different reality, dazed, strangely detached, as if the whole building hadn't just turned inside out. Officers brought him down, hands on his head, cuffs clicking into place while the words "suspicion of homicide" hung in the air. And the basement was only the beginning. The apartment tells a story. Cleaning supplies and missing pieces. Once detectives got inside Jared's apartment, the scene didn't look like a normal home. It looked like someone had tried to erase something. Fast, messy, panicked. Clothes scattered. A white cleaning powder on the floor. A reddish-brown stain in the kitchen that had been scrubbed but not defeated. This is the part people rarely understand about violent cases. The body isn't the only evidence. The cleanup is evidence too. The frantic decisions, the last-minute purchases, the streaks and stains and almost spots. Investigators pulled Jared's card activity and his movements started to form a timeline. After Ashley went silent, he was seen buying cleaning supplies. Ammonia, gloves, and cheap materials meant to wipe away what happened. Cameras caught him making trips, moving like someone on a mission. Then there were the trash dumps bags discarded in places that weren't his. When investigators went through those bins, they found items that tied back to Ashley, her purse, her ID, clothing with blood. Even the kind of detail that seems small until it's not. A name tag sewn into pants, removing any wiggle room about who had been wearing them. And then there was the most haunting part. Ashley's remains weren't whole. Key parts, her head, her hands, her feet were missing. That absence created two things at once: a deeper horror and a legal battle the defense would later lean on. Because if you can't recover certain remains, you can't always prove specific mechanics. You can't always answer the how as neatly as people want. But prosecutors didn't need to prove every gruesome detail. They needed to prove something simpler and heavier. Ashley's death was caused by Jared Chance. And here's the truth. Juries tend to understand even without medical diagrams. People don't dismember accidents. People don't wrap accidents in tarps and hide them in basements. People don't buy gloves and ammonia at dawn because an accident happened. That's not confusion, that's concealment. But the case didn't stop at Jared. Because the trail led out of Grand Rapids and straight into his family's world. Family cover-up and the verdict that closed the door. Jared's phone pinged in Holland, Michigan, his parents' town. Detectives followed that signal and found something that made the story even darker. Evidence suggesting the cleanup wasn't a one-man operation. In the Chance family home, investigators recovered a reciprocating saw connected to Ashley through DNA. They found signs of transport disposal and movement pieces of a cover-up that looked less like helping a confused son and more like participating in the aftermath of a nightmare. When questioned, Jared's mother eventually cracked. She described Jared coming to them crying, insisting it was an accident, claiming Ashley shot herself. A story designed to soften the act, to make it feel tragic instead of criminal. But even as she spoke, the details slipped out in ways that sounded like knowledge you don't get from a vague explanation. What was missing? What was moved? What was smelled? What was seen? Jared's father tried to frame it as persecution-like. The system was coming after them for being his parents, not for what they did. But in interviews, his words wobbled. He made small slips, corrected himself, slipped again, revealing how hard it is to act innocent when the facts are heavier than your story. Meanwhile, Jared kept his composure in a way that chilled people who watched. Calm, controlled, invoking counsel, acting like the chaos around him was an inconvenience, not a human life destroyed. A reporter managed to speak with him via jail call, and for a moment it sounded like he might explain something, but he didn't. He cut it off. No statement, no answers, just distance.
I really can't say much, but I don't even really know what to say.
When the case reached trial, the courtroom became the place where the silence finally had to sit in front of evidence. Prosecutors laid out what they could prove. Ashley was last seen with Jared. She went to his apartment. She never came out. A stain in the kitchen, a frantic cleanup, purchases, discarded belongings, a tarp in the basement, missing remains, and the family's involvement after the fact. The defense tried to lean on uncertainty, suggesting suicide, suggesting the prosecution couldn't prove the exact method without the missing pieces. But the jury didn't have to pick a perfect story.